John Lennon said something I find very profound. He said, "Be intellectual about the gospel, but have your trust in God." He goes on to explain it as knowing so much of the scripture and asking questions, trusting in God for answers, etc. We ought to study the word. You get an evangelism opportunity just once. You don't get it more than once. So you ought to study the word. And most times, if we don't make good use of it, the opportunity disappears. So we must be able to preach and defend the gospel at any time we're called upon to do that, because it is a sign that we love people, and that is the reason why we should participate in understanding the scripture very well, especially being intellectually sound in the scriptures. We must be able to preach and defend the gospel. It is a sign of love. It means you care enough. It means you care enough for people to show them the truth that you have encountered. So if you have seen something and you have encountered a truth and you want to share that truth, it is a very good sign to, do this. And there is no greater love and no greater tool than that of evangelism. And when we study the scriptures, we should more of study the scriptures from the perspective that we are. It's not from the perspective of, I want to go and teach, so I have to study the scriptures because I want to go and teach. But it's also to study scriptures from the perspective that we are learning, we are being edified, we are getting this for ourselves, because it is when I'm able to get to know this for myself, to know the applications for myself, that is when I can teach another person how to use the same tool, the same thing for and apply it to their lives for themselves. So I cannot offer what I do not have. Certain times we see a lot of believers who try to offer things they don't have. And for example, some parents think it's all about instructing your kid in a way they should go. Some parents will say things like, "Do not lie," but the kids see them lying all the time. They are lying to someone. So the kid starts understanding life from this perspective. This kid starts seeing life from the perspective of, you know what, I may not be able to stop lying, but I can always tell other people not to lie. So that is what happens to a lot of believers. That is what happens to a lot of Christians. A lot of Christians start getting to the point where they start living this life of lying a lot, right? They start living this life of doing what they practicing what they do not preach, then keep preaching what they do not practice. And it is easy to tell. A lot of believers can easily tell. A lot of unbelievers can easily tell that. So when you are practicing things that you do not preach, and you're preaching things absolutely different from what you practice, there is no way you can ever get a soul from that. There is no way you can ever defend the gospel from that. You cannot say the gospel changes the lives of people. However, you have hate in your life. You cannot say the gospel brings about love, but you hate everyone. No, it's impossible. So first of all, the place to start from is understanding the gospel for yourself, applying it to your life. And when you apply it to your life, even then, can you talk to others? Can you preach to others? That is one of the greatest tools of evangelism that I have ever seen. The greatest tool of evangelism that I have ever seen, one of the greatest, is being able to live it. Because guess what? Your life, your character can preach the gospel louder than your mouth can express. When people watch you and they say there's something about this person, there's something new about this person, that is you preaching the gospel. That is a very great tool of evangelism. Guess what? A lot of people fall off the faith. Why? Because they see other people who they respect so much falling off the faith. They see other people who they respect so much doing things that are contrary to what they preach. So if you see someone who is doing a lot of things that are contrary to what they preach, and they come to you and they say, follow me, emulate me. No, you are not worthy of any emulation. And that is one of the journeys of Paul, where he is so proud to say, emulate me, for I emulate Christ, right? Because if your life is not worthy, if you've not put yourself through that place of pruning, you cannot be emulated. Your life is not worthy of such, and you're not even in a good shape to be an evangelist. So you cannot have hate in your heart and then claim to love God and desire that other people come see and come have what you have.